Go out, Lindsay. G'day and welcome to Inside Rugby. My name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Now in today's video it's going to be something a little bit different for you all. I'm doing a series of interviews with people across the rugby world and we're going to get into the depths of rugby, what's going on in the world of rugby today. We're going to be talking to players, officials, administrators and a whole lot more from the world of rugby, so you and I have a better understanding on what's going on in the game, what needs to be fixed, what can we do to make it more entertaining, and more importantly, what can we do to attract more people to the great game of rugby. So that's what this series of interviews and videos is going to be about. Now in today's video I've got a very exciting guest for you all. His name is Joshua Golden Clarke. He's 18 years old. He's from the UK, he plays his rugby in the UK, and I'm going to talk to him in this interview about his journey in rugby, about what's going on in UK rugby, what he likes about it, what he doesn't like about it, what the opportunities are for young guys like him who wants to turn professional and hopefully represent his country one day. So let's get on and go and have a chat to Joshua. So it's a very warm welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark to Joshua Golden Clarke. Joshua, welcome to the show, mate.
Hi Mark, thank you for having me on.
Now, as I said just before we started recordings, a little bit of a technical challenge we had last time we tried to do this. So now we hope we're through it. So it's good to have you back on. And you've just told me that you've come back from training tonight. Was it raining there in the UK?
No, it stayed nice and dry for training tonight, so that's all right. First night in a while being dry.
I don't know whether I believe you on that one, but I'll take your word for it, mate. I'll take your word for it. Now, I've let all my audience know around the world, and I've got to tell you that people listening to the show today are from great rugby playing nations of South Africa, from France, from New Zealand. We've even got a lot of listeners in Fiji and Samoa, and a few in Portugal and Romania as well as the United States, and even here in Mexico. So you're going to be listened to by a global audience. So you're representing to England today. So let's see how well you can do on the global stage with no pressure from me at all. Yeah. So there we go. So let's start off with you starting your rugby career. I've told everybody how old you are. You're 18 years old, and tell us where you live and tell us how you started off playing rugby.
So I've lived in Newquay for most of my life. I've started off at my grassroots club of Newquay Hornets at the age of 5. I started off at an older age group there as I was too young to enter my own age group at the time. But at the moment I'm up living in Exeter as I'm at Exeter Uni and playing for the Fresh Ones team there in Bucks 2.
So Newquay, lovely part of Cornwall, good place to do a bit of swimming in the summer as well, and you're into surf lifesaving as well. Tell us about that journey.
So yeah, I've been doing surf lifesaving since like the age of 7. I've gone through up like all my lifeguard qualifications and also done a lot of the competition side of it. I've done a lot of national competitions. I'm a national champ for my age at beach flags and beach sprints. I also do obviously a lot of the sea events where it's on board and the swims, but naturally more of a beachy due to my rugby skill sets and speed.
Now, what did you get into first? Did you get into surf lifesaving first or rugby?
Rugby was always first. Always rugby family, just always been around rugby.
So did your dad used to take you to rugby games when you were a lot smaller, or how did that start?
My dad's always just loved rugby. He's never really played properly when he was younger, but it's always been a sport he's enjoyed and loved watching. So it's just automatically got me into it, and ever since I've loved it.
Fantastic. So playing for the Hornets there in Newquay, good team was it when you were there? Because you've just recently shifted, and we'll talk about that shift shortly in the show. But tell us a little bit about your time at the Newquay Hornets.
Yeah, my time at Hornets has been amazing. I started off obviously really young, stuck with a group of players that I've played with for 10 plus years now. Brilliant group. We always had a good connection and played really well as a team.
Yeah, brilliant. And what were some of the highlights of playing in that club? Is it a very big club? How many members does it have?
It's a fairly big club in Cornwall. We've got obviously good younger age group, juniors and minis. I've played probably some of my favourite games were during Colts. In my first year of Colts, with playing with all my mates, we had some good games against teams like Weybridge and Redruth. It's just it's a really fun level of rugby.
I went to Redruth when I was over there, and I met you after that. And I've got to say that Redruth ground is pretty interesting. It's got a bit of a famous corner. Have you played on that ground at Redruth?
I have played on the ground, yes, but just at Colt level.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about in terms of the famous corner and at Redruth Rugby Club?
Yeah, it's where you get all the supporters down in that corner for Redruth, and it's known to be loud.
It is indeed, and who was it? I think Phil Vickery made it famous, that particular corner, because there was a big fight down there once that I think he instigated, but I don't want to put myself on the record for saying that. But anyway, okay, good. So Colts in the UK, how old do you have to be to play Colts in England?
So Colts is from like 16 to 18 age category, sort of when you're at during your college times.
Yep. Okay. So growing up, what were some of the first positions you played in the younger grades of rugby?
My first position was initially inside centre at 12, and then slowly as the game sort of like progressed, the pitch got wider, and we started to understand the rules a bit more and positions more. I moved out to 13 as I could use my pace a bit more on the outside and use my handling a bit better. But as my time in the game's gone on, as I headed off to Truro College for the rugby there, I moved to fullback and played a bit of wing as well there, but continued to play 13 with my club and also at Truro College as well.
So anywhere out wide is good for you, yeah? You like playing out wide. We've just had the Rugby World Cup, of course. Plenty of great centres in the Rugby World Cup, also good wingers and fullbacks. Anybody from the Rugby World Cup in those positions that stood out for you as favourites?
I would say probably as fullback, Bowden Barrett delivered again. He definitely had one of his best World Cups actually, and played brilliantly as usual. Showed that he's still one of the world's best. No
arguments from me, mate, on that one. What about on the wings? Any wingers that stood out for you?
I think watching Arundel as a young player came into his first World Cup game and scored 5 tries. I think that's something pretty amazing, and not many could ever do that.
And he was still left on the bench after that. I couldn't get my head around that one, huh?
Yeah, well, he's a young player at a World Cup. It's tough to make into the team in it.
Yeah.
But I think the games he played, he did really well.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to talk more about the World Cup during the show today, but I want to continue following your career path. So you played for the Colts there in Newquay, and just recently you've made a new step for your playing career, but also from your education point of view. Where are you nowadays?
So we're now doing a sports degree at Exeter Uni and playing for the Fresh Ones team here in Bucks 2.
Okay, so let's explain for everybody listening around the world, what does the Bucks level of rugby consist of in the UK?
So you've got Bucks 1, which is an incredibly high level of rugby, can be compared to like championship sort of level. It's all the first team uni teams. So Exeter Uni are the champions at that 2 years in a row at the moment and hoping to go for a third. But I play in Bucks 2 as part of the Fresh Ones team, which is obviously still an amazing, good level of rugby, and play a lot of the second teams at unis and a couple fresh teams, same as ours.
So this is the first year for you at that level of rugby. How does the level of performance go up from what you were used to in Newquay at the Hornets? Is there a considerable step up in terms of skill sets and everything?
Well, compared to Colts level, there's quite a big jump. But in regards to my college and academy level with Chiefs, it's not too much of a big jump as you get used to playing with high level skilled players. But the physicality has jumped up a bit because we're playing people that are 2, 3 years older than us, as we're one of the only fresh teams there.
Okay. And how did you end up getting into Exeter? Was that a choice that you wanted to go there, or were you headhunted to get into that team?
So it was always a uni that I really wanted to go to, as obviously it's close to home, so I can still get my family can still come up to support, which I've always liked. But it's also just one of the best rugby unis in the country, as they've won the cup 2 years in a row. But yeah, so far my time here has been really good.
And what position are you predominantly playing in Exeter?
At the moment, I've been playing fullback and wing mainly, so in the back three. Been mixing between the two. The past few weeks I've been at fullback mainly, but weeks before that I've played quite a bit of wing as well.
At the beginning of the show today, I showed an extraordinary try that you scored on the wing. I think it was in one of the warm-up games before you started the season this year. We're going to walk through that try a little bit later in the show and get you to give us a player perspective on what was going through your mind, because I'm sure everybody who sees that try watching this video today is going to be very, very impressed with that. So that was when you were playing on the left wing that day, is that right?
Yeah, I was on the left wing that day. Yeah, it was a pre-season match just before the end of summer and season started.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, look, another reason I wanted to get you on the show today was to share with my global audience, the impact of rugby today for a young person like you who has grand ambitions to go on with a rugby career. And I guess at the end of it, you'd like to be a professional rugby player and play for England one day. Is that your dream?
Yeah, well, that's my overall ambition, is to make it as a professional rugby player, and obviously the absolute dream would be to represent England.
Okay, terrific. Now, how hard is it in terms of that pathway? And also the other thing I want to know is, how clear is it for you what you have to do to really, first of all, get to the professional level, and then obviously, be seen on the professional level to make it into an England jersey? So what do you have to do to make sure your career keeps on the pathway?
Obviously, it is really tough to get a professional career in the UK. Obviously, there's a lot of young players and a lot of clubs bringing them up. But throughout my time so far, obviously, I've been following through the Exeter Chiefs Academy, playing from under 17s and under 18s, and obviously now at Exeter Uni, which there is a really strong link between Exeter Uni and some professional clubs, especially Chiefs, but also links with clubs like Harlequins and stuff like that.
So when I was in the UK, as you know, I went to a lot of rugby clubs, and I saw a lot of rugby clubs in financial difficulty in terms of struggling not just to keep the doors open, but to help the players out as well. Is that something you've experienced so far in your journey? Is money a problem within the England rugby system?
Well, at my club at home, Hornets, there was a few years where we were lacking a clubhouse, but I think with the struggles financially, the RFU are doing their best. You see that they in the UK they put up a lot of 3G pitches, which help for rugby to be played all year round, and just help the sport continue, and also bring people in, because instead of playing on a muddy, wet pitch, you could play on a nice dry Astro.
Well, you can get muddy, wet pitches in the UK in the middle of summertime, let alone in the middle of winter time. So what's it like playing rugby on a artificial pitch? It must be pretty tough on the old legs, yeah?
It can be quite painful, especially if you get a nice slide in it. At the moment, I'm recovering from a few grazes on my knee at the moment.
So you'd be wearing long pants like they do in American football, are you?
Yes. Well, at training, I like to wear joggers or like long leggings, just to sort of protect my knees a bit more and help the grazes and cuts heal.
Yeah, brilliant. So 18 years old today, playing at Exeter University. What's the next logical step for you, and how long is it going to take you to get there, do you think?
Well, at the moment, I'll be at Exeter Uni for 4 years now, so I think that'd be a good time for me to obviously develop as a player, both physically and sort of mentally within the game, understand the game a bit more. I think over that time, I would like to make a professional break, and hopefully that happens.
That'll put you at 22 years old. I think there's a guy called Marcus Smith in the England team that's 22, so it's not impossible for you to reach that goal quite young, is it?
Yeah, exactly. You see a lot of young players breaking through, like the likes of Marcus Smith and Arundel and Freddie Stewart. But it's definitely possible, especially with being at Exeter Uni with the strong links with all the clubs across the country, and also it just being a really high level that I get to play at.
So as a young guy, that must give you a lot of inspiration, does it? Seeing people like those guys you just mentioned who are young and starting off their careers and going to the Rugby World Cup this year and playing very well. Does it give you some inspiration to think, yeah, look, I can be like one of them, I can get there too?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I really enjoy watching Freddie Stewart at fullback for England. He's a player I look up to, and try to base my game off. I mean, as you see, he runs as hard as anyone. I mean, at his young age, he's there bouncing off some of the best centres in the world.
I loved watching him at the Rugby World Cup, except for that 5 minute period against South Africa where things didn't go exactly well, but he was tremendous under the high ball. I thought he took some really, really good and important takes, not only in that game, but in other games as well. But I guess it was a wonderful experience going to the World Cup at that age and getting that exposure. So I expect him to come back in Australia in 2027, being one of the superstars of world rugby. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I'm sure he'll develop over the time for 2027, and he'll be an outstanding player by then. Even though he already is, but he'll just have that experience under his belt as well. Then.
Well, let's hope that you're knocking on the door by that stage, and you can kick him out of his position and get in there and be the England fullback. Would you prefer to play on the wing or fullback for England?
Fullback, 100%.
Fullback, okay. So talking about the position itself, I think it's quite interesting to hear from players what they like and dislike about the positions they play in. What's your favourite thing about playing in the fullback position?
I like the position overall, all aspects of it. But I would say one of my favourite things is definitely, receiving the ball in the backfield and just scanning for the space and deciding where you're going to go and which gap or which kick or what sort of kick you're going to choose to take. But along with that, I also love my defence in the backfield. Marking the backfield, making sure that they can't kick, or if they do, you're covering it. But also, if a line breaks, making that dominant shot on the player.
Would you say then that it's a thinking person's position, fullback? You've got to have a bit of intelligence about you and working those things out?
100%. It's quite a hard position. You have to obviously keep scanning and make sure that you're always aware and always concentrating. So it's definitely a hard position to play.
Yeah. Now, what about the flip side? Is there anything about being a fullback that you're not too keen on?
Sometimes if it's you got bad conditions, which we get a lot in England, then you might not get the ball as much, which can be quite frustrating. But also you might get to do a bit more defensive work when they make line breaks, which I do really enjoy.
One of the things I wanted to highlight today was that incredible try that you scored, as I mentioned earlier in the video. And I've watched it, I don't know, about 15 times now, and I keep seeing something new that you did during that process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show that try again while we're talking through it in slow motion. And I want you just to talk about what was going through your mind as a player. And the ball, first of all, was kicked. Obviously, the opposition was trying to kick the ball close to touch or in touch, and they didn't find touch, and you received the ball. And what was happening in your mind what were you thinking in your mind when the ball was coming down to you and you were about to catch it?
So obviously, initially, I was set on the touchline, sort of marking where the ball will go and hoping that it might fall short. But obviously, as the ball started to come down, I sort of was concentrating on the ball, but also looking in my provisional vision to see where any attacking players, defending players were coming from. So obviously, as the ball came down into my hands, I identified the player in front of me, and decided the best option was to go round back on the blind side. Obviously, made that first initial break, and just sort of scanning through what's in front of me, also looking where my support is, and just noticed a little gap inside. So I used as much of my pace to go back inside, and then ended out with obviously the fullback in front of me and a player on my right hand side inside the pitch, looking around again, seeing where my support is, seeing what the best option would be to do, and identified that the best option was to step back in and then drive for the try line and got the score.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, when you actually get the ball in that situation, does it ever go into your mind in the very beginning of that split second that you could actually make it to the try line, or is it always about getting somewhere where you can probably offload to a teammate or something? Is there anything in the mind saying I can score a try from here?
I would say the initial sort of thing that goes through your mind is just going through the process. You want to make sure you catch the ball to start with, so you go through the process. You don't really want to think about what the outcome will be at that stage. So you just go through step by step, thinking about the process, and just hope everything turns out the way where you wanted it to.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it did on that occasion, and I'm sure you'll score plenty more tries like that in your games going forward as well. Now, talking about tries, we saw some fantastic tries at the Rugby World Cup this year. I'm sure as a player and a young guy in the game, you were probably riveted to a lot of the World Cup games. What were some of the games that stuck out for you? Which games did you enjoy watching the most?
I mean, obviously, I enjoyed watching all the England games. I think the first one against Argentina was an absolute masterclass from George Ford and his kicking boot. But I also enjoyed a lot of the sort of lower level games where you got some tier 2 nations playing against tier 1. The likes of Fiji v Portugal. I think that game was absolutely amazing. Portugal had an outstanding World Cup and really proved themselves at that level.
Yeah, incredible, wasn't it? And I think it was an outstanding game, even if you were a Fiji fan, because they were going to get through anyway to the knockout stage. So yeah, it was a tremendous game. What do you think needs to happen? You know, someone of your age again and experience in the game, what do you think World Rugby needs to do to embrace these tier 2 nations and give them more opportunities? What do you think has to happen around there?
I think the tier 2 nations just obviously need a bit more game time. That's the only way they'll ever get experience and ever be able to front up and play well against the tier 1 nations like England, New Zealand and South Africa. They just need a bit more game time and get that experience under their belts.
Well, there's been news in the press this week that Georgia is going to have a new coach, and it looks like it's a man coming from the UK. So we'll have to wait and see what he can do to in that particular position as well. So anybody else stick out in the World Cup for you in your positions? You know, you talked about Bowden, Barrett and those guys, but were there any other players on any of the teams that were really, really sort of fascinated by in the way they played?
I was watching obviously a lot of positions, and because obviously I've played quite a few myself, but just watching a few. Obviously there was the likes of Arundel and Stewart and Barrett, but I thought also Smith did play well at fullback when he was there. He was quite a good link for England, going through the hands. But you've also got your sort of more attacking wingers that were coming in, like the likes of Elliot Daly, who was also playing the ball a lot for England. So yeah, there was a lot of players that I was trying to watch during that World Cup, and sort of helps to sort of analyse them and use that towards my game.
Do you think Marcus Smith should be at fullback or number 10?
I would say Freddie Stewart should be at fullback. I would say he's definitely the best fullback I would say England has, but unfortunately I would still back Farrell at 10 for England.
Farrell at 10, there we go. That'll get a lot of people chatting in the comments, that's for sure on this show. Yeah, it was a great World Cup, and look, I made a lot of videos about the World Cup, and there was a lot of great conversation and sharing online here on my channel. And one of the things that we talked a lot about was the TMO and how all that progressed. What are your thoughts around TMO and rugby, and in particular at the World Cup? What do you think of it all?
I think the new yellow card rule with the 10 minutes for the TMO to the side was really worked well at the World Cup. Obviously, I know that a red card and a yellow card can really change a game at any level, especially at the World Cup, as we saw with the final, for example, where Sam Cane got obviously red carded, and you could say that made it that South Africa won the World Cup. You know, it certainly helped them. Obviously, these decisions made by the by the refs are really tough, and I think that extra 10 minutes that they get now to make that decision is really pivotal to help the game, keep free flowing, but also make sure that everyone is safe in the environment.
So you'd like to see the TMO continue, and you think it's a good thing for the game?
Yeah, I'd like to see it continue. I think it really did help the World Cup and just kept it a bit more free flowing without those constant 10 minutes where we're watching the TMO go through his decision live.
Yeah. And what about on the flip side? Do you think there's a danger there, though, that games could be ruined with teams going down to 14 or even 13 men or women on the field? Do you think that's a probable negative of having the TMO?
I think it definitely is a negative. It makes the game, a lot. It can really change a game if you go down to 14 men or even 13 in some cases. But it's a negative that has to happen, as I think the safety needs to still be there. But obviously the rules are getting stricter, but that's all for a reason.
Okay, so you talk about rules, and obviously the laws of the game are very important, and we've seen how they've changed over recent years. As a player, is there a lot of emphasis put on your coaching and development around the laws of today and how you interpret the laws and how you actually play the game?
I think during this pre-season, with the new rule that was brought in by the RFU of the tackle height below chest for any level that's below championship, that rule was we did a lot of training on that to make sure that everyone was tackling low enough. It does change the game because a lot of dominant shots were put in quite high up if you're going in for a double tackle. So we had to train, bringing everyone's tackle lower. So if you're going in for a double tackle, you're shot in below the ball. So it makes safer for obviously the attacking players, but we still got to train and make sure that we're putting in dominant shots.
While you were talking about that, I've shown the video of you making a tackle one-on-one with a big bulldozing runner that was coming towards you, and you seemed to bring him down fairly well. Did you get a bit of pain tackling that guy?
Yeah, it was a bit of a knock to the shoulder, but it sort of kept me going when the crowd cheer on the side because it was a big tackle, and when you do one of them, you get picked up by your teammates, and everyone's all pumped to go and do more shots just like that.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, a lot of these laws have come in because of the focus around player welfare, and there's a lot of things going on within the world of rugby around player welfare. Another topic around player welfare, of course, is mental health and mental fitness and support. At your current club environment, are you getting enough support around the whole issue of mental health? How's that going?
I think there's a lot of support at the uni. Obviously, you can go to speak to any of the coaches. There's also, we get chats about them. There's also, they can sometimes bring people in, but I think there is a lot of support, and it is a focus in rugby now. As we see, there's a lot of players that are struggling from it. Even the likes of Owen Farrell, who's known to be quite a bold and outstanding player, but he's obviously struggling from it from negative social media comments and stuff like that. It does affect any level of player.
What do you think needs to be done around the social media aspect? Because we're seeing not only players, but we're seeing referees getting abused. We're seeing families getting threatened. What do you think the game needs to do and social tech media companies need to do to protect the rugby players and all sports people, of course, in this environment?
I think obviously it's an unfortunate thing because social media is so positive for rugby as well. Helps spread it across the world and helps all players around the world link. But obviously there are these negative sides to it which do need to be sorted. I think it's down to the people that are really putting these comments. They should actually think and go back to being how rugby was, which is a respectable game where the refs are always right and all that. It's a sportsman's game.
Do you think that there should be life bans brought into people that are causing problems at games? Like we've seen a lot of hooligans and racial abuse and all this sort of stuff going on. Do you think people should be banned from the game for these really bad indiscretions?
I think definitely it shouldn't be done. It's respect for the players on the pitch. There should always be that respect for obviously the players and the coaches and the refs. But I definitely agree with that. I think they should be banned if they're going to that level.
Have you experienced anything like that yourself yet?
Nothing like that. Obviously, you get the bit of uni banter on the touchline, where you get the little chats from opposition, but obviously all kept to a nice low level, and nothing that is proper offensive or shouldn't be said.
Yeah, okay, good to know. Well, let's hope it stays that way as you progress with your career. So, how many games down so far this season? How many have your team won?
I think we've had about 10 games this season. I would say we've won about half of them. It's been quite a tough season so far. Obviously, we're all younger at the age of like 18 or 19, and we're playing teams that are like 20 and 21, which makes it quite tough physically for us. But we're quite a fast playing and young team, so we like to get the ball in hand and play it out wide. So we have played some really good games and dominated a lot of teams, but obviously some of the older teams and the bigger teams we've just been losing in the forwards, and then obviously they get front ball and quite tough to come back from.
Have you scored a few points yourself?
I've scored a few tries myself. Been had a few good games and just been playing fullback and wing and putting in a fair few tackles as well, which I always love to do. But yeah, it's been a good few games.
So you're in there for the player of the season, are you?
We have to wait to see on that. There's obviously another half of the season to go. I'd like to get a few more tries under my belt this season and have a lot more good games.
We'll have to check in with you after that and see how you go. When does the season actually come to an end for you and your team?
So the league comes to the end just after January, and then we've got a fair few playoff games. So usually a season will end at March and start of April.
Okay, good. So by the end of March, you're basically done, yeah?
Yeah.
And then it's into surf lifesaving then, is it?
Yes, so then surf lifesaving will start to pick up for this summer season.
I dare say there's a lot of benefits in terms of CrossFit training, crossover training from surf lifesaving, bringing that into rugby. Does that help you out?
Yeah, I believe that there's been a lot of links between my surf lifesaving and my rugby training. I think they've both helped each other in regards to my flags and my agility on a pitch. I think they're both really linked well together and have helped me to achieve well in both obviously nationally and in my rugby.
So when I met you in the UK, you were telling me about a horrific story that you went through a couple of years ago or a few years ago that could have ended your rugby playing career. What happened at the time?
Yes, so back in 2019, I was up in the Lake District with my dad and my granddad, and I had a bit of an incident with an axe into the knee. But luckily I was rushed off to hospital. Had surgery on it, all stitches and everything, and came back stronger for it. And since then, no problems with it. And I think in some ways it might have helped me because I focused more on building that leg up and making sure it was as strong as it could be.
Well, you make sure you stay away from axes in the future. We don't want anything chopping your legs off. That's a horrendous story. So going forward, what's the next logical step in terms of your rugby career and where you go from here? What do you hope to aim for in terms of milestones over the next 4 years while you're at university?
Hopefully, I'm aiming for to play for the national two side at the uni, but also play for the Bucks one team. They're both obviously incredibly high levels of rugby, and both will help me to develop both obviously physically and understand the game more.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Now, a lot of people watching my channel, we talk often about the issues within world rugby, declining numbers of people watching the game around the world and players as well. What do you think World Rugby needs to do to invest in the game more, to get more people interested in the game of rugby?
I think that, as I was saying earlier, there needs to be more games played by the Tier 2 nations as well. Obviously, there's a lot of games played by Tier 1 nations, whether it's the Six Nations or the Autumn Nations. There's a lot of games played. But the Tier 2 nations really don't have enough games at all. So I think if, World Rugby made competitions where they could join in, or possibly play themselves, I think it will really help for people from them countries, start to support their own country and build up the profile of rugby across the world.
Yeah, good idea. I like the idea of having a Southern Hemisphere versus a Northern Hemisphere competition for both the Tier 1 and Tier 2 nations. So I'd like to see that happen even on an annual basis. I think that would really get the global rugby audience excited because there's a lot of potential players in the mix of those two tiers. What do you think of that?
I think that'd be a brilliant idea. Obviously, you see it a fair bit with the Autumn Nations, where you get some of these Southern Hemispheres playing the Northern. But as you say, it really needs to happen for the Tier 2 nations as well, for rugby to be able to, expand and become a better game.
Okay, good. Now, getting back to World Rugby and what they can do, someone at your level, 18 years old, ambitions to be a professional rugby player and play for your nation, what else needs to be done to help people like you to achieve your goals? Or do you think there's enough in place now for you to become successful in rugby as it is today?
I think there is a lot in place now. The RFU work a lot with clubs all over the country, setting up the 3G pitches so clubs can play all year round, but also you get premiership teams putting money into universities and putting money into colleges so that they have state-of-the-art facilities. Like whilst I was at Truro College, we had a 4G pitch and a state-of-the-art gym, so it enabled me to develop really well there. I think more can be done, but obviously it's quite tough for World Rugby and people like the RFU to be able to do that, as it comes down to financial, but also the availability of coaches and stuff like that.
A lot of people talk about the gap between the elite players at the top of the game and the players underneath. Do you see that in England? Is that something that's obvious within the rugby world in England?
There is a vast gap between, obviously, you got the Premiership players and obviously some of these players that are playing at Bucks 1 compared to the lower levels that are at grassroots clubs and stuff like that. There is a big difference in performance level between them. But I think you get that in most countries and everywhere across the world, as it's just going through the levels of sport. But I think it is the grassroots level is really key to the club, to the sport, as it brings the players up. It's how players are created, so it is something that needs to be well funded and always looked after.
Yeah, good point. What about coaching and referees? Do you see enough support and development of coaches and referees? Do you have good coaches where you are?
The coaches here are obviously all brilliant. They're a lot of them are Chiefs coaches, so we get a really good level of coaching here. But we do see a lot of refs are in short numbers. There aren't really enough in the UK. Most weeks we get the same refs doing the same games. There does need to be a bit more drive to push for more refs across the UK.
Yeah, okay. You wouldn't have, I don't know if you saw yesterday the incident in Turkey in football. Did you see that, where the ref got hit in the face?
Yeah, I saw that incident, and obviously the sport's been stopped for a few weeks, hasn't it, there?
Yeah, absolutely incredible. But that's the sort of thing we don't need happening in sport that's going to put people off becoming referees, because let's face it, without a referee, we don't have a game, right? And if people give up being referees, then where does that leave the sport?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you do see it a lot in football that refs get a lot of hate, but I feel like that is slowly being brought over to rugby, which it really shouldn't. There should always be that respect for the refs and also the TMOs.
Yep. Good. Now, in terms of your own pathway, what do you see as some of the challenges for you to get to where you want to go? Again, being a professional player in the UK or representing your country, what do you see as some of the barriers along the way, or potential barriers?
Obviously, there's a lot of players in the UK now playing rugby. There's a lot of high level performers. There's a lot of competition for each position, but so far along my time, I've obviously been selected for Chiefs under 17s and 18s. I think that has been really good for my development, and really good for sort of my own experience in the sport, and has allowed me to play some really high level of rugby across the UK. Okay,
tremendous. Now, you and I both represent different nations that are very big in women's rugby as well. England, unfortunately, beating the New Zealanders in the last endeavour, but we did win the World Cup. What's the thoughts around women's rugby in your area? Do you see a lot of growth in the game for women's rugby?
I think there is a lot of growth in recent years. I've noticed in women's rugby, there's a lot more clubs like popping up in Cornwall, but also there's a lot of uni teams now where you're getting more than just the one team. You're getting like threes and fours. So I think it really is expanding well. And also when you're looking at the Premiership level of women's rugby here, it's an incredibly high level. Obviously they do have struggles with money, which obviously the RFU and World Rugby are trying to help out with.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the level of women's rugby is massively growing, and I thoroughly enjoy watching it at the Premiership and world stage.
So is there any connection at the moment between women's rugby and men's rugby at your level? Do you see, women coming over and asking for advice and training and getting ideas and techniques and all that sort of stuff? Does that happen at all?
I think you're seeing a lot more connection now when you've got like Premiership teams that are both have the men and women's. So sometimes, they might be in the gym together or something like that, but you also get the same analyzers. So there is a lot more links coming into the game between the two sport. But yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Who's your favourite team in the Premiership this year?
Obviously got to support my club, so Exeter Chiefs.
Okay.
I've played, always supported them since a young age, so always backing them.
And what do you think between the competitions, the URC and the Premiership? Which one do you prefer watching?
I really enjoy watching the Premiership, to be fair. I think I quite like the battle between all the English clubs when you got like Saracens, Northampton, Sale and Exeter Chiefs, some of the top teams in the world, they all are. But I do enjoy watching, the battle between the English clubs and the South African and the French clubs. I think it is a really high level, both of them.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, listen, Joshua, I'm really keen to follow your journey, and I'm sure all the listeners and viewers of this show today are going to be interested to see how your career as a rugby player unfolds. I'm very thankful to your mum, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have met you. And we have the opportunity now to stay connected. And I already asked you offline whether you'd come back for regular interviews with me, because we want to see how your rugby career's unfolding in the UK and beyond. Have you got any ambitions also to go and play rugby overseas one day? There's a lot of good global competitions now.
I think it would be something that if the offer was there, I'd absolutely love to do. But I also would like to, stay in the UK as I get my family come and support me at a lot of my games, which I really enjoy. They've always done it through all my levels of rugby. There's barely a game where they would ever miss. So it's something that I would like to maintain and hope that they can keep coming to.
Yeah, good on you, mate. That's very important. Keep the family close, that's for sure. Well, listen, again, thanks very much for coming on the show today. It's been great to listen to you and to talk to an actual young generation rugby player who's coming up and who's very dedicated to his passion. I'm going to put the links to your social media in the description of this video. So if anybody wants to get out there and support you from around the world, they can drop you a message and get in contact with you. And I'm going to stand by my offer to have you back on the show on a regular basis to follow your career through the UK. Keep sending me those videos of your games, and I'll keep putting them up on my channel as well as you're scoring those fantastic tries, Joshua.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I've thoroughly enjoyed this and really enjoyed speaking to you, and hopefully we get to keep doing these and stay in contact.
Absolutely. Thanks again, and we'll speak again soon. But thanks for joining me on Inside Rugby with Mark today.
Thanks for having me.
So there you go. There's my guest, Joshua Golden Clarke from the UK, a great 18-year-old young man, I'm sure you will agree with me, who's really passionate and dedicated. When I met Joshua in the UK earlier this year, I was outstanded by his humility and also his passion for rugby. And if anyone's going to make it all the way in this great game of ours, it's going to be a young man like him. So I hope you're as keen as I am to follow his career and see whether or not he ends up ultimately in an England shirt. So I've got lots of more interviews coming up on the channel. I've reached out to some very interesting people in the world of rugby. We're going to be talking to players. We're going to be talking to officials. We're going to be talking to administrators and those people who are trying to grow our great game of rugby across the world. I want to bring more of that information to you here on Inside Rugby with Mark. So all I've got to say now is if you like the content, hit that subscription button, give us a thumbs up and a liking on this video, and I will thank you very much for you doing that. Until next time, it's adios from Mexico, and I'll see you all again very soon.